Okay, so welcome back to the kind of the part number 2 of this series about the Crave. And on this one, we need to talk about the Patchbay. So we will cover every single out and every single in on this synthesizer, and we will go one by one. Yes. So if you didn't watch, or maybe you didn't know, I've already released a video about this, about the whole synthesizer without the Patchbay. I'm going to give you the cards right there at the top, and I'm going to give you a link on the description. Because to know how the Patchbay works, you kind of need to know how the whole synth works. Maybe you need to really know the panel, not so much of the sequencer, but the panel. That's something that you really need to know. And at the end, we are going to be talking about some of the ins and outs we get to use the sequencer. So in that part, you're going to need to know the sequencer. So check the cards and check the descriptions. So this is not a review. This is an in-depth guide about this the Patchbay of the synthesizer. Now I'm going to be starting with this configuration. This configuration is going to be my default patch. So if I play something, it's going to be something like that. No modulation right here. There's nothing right there, nothing right here. We're going to be on center and no modulation right there. Right, so let's start covering the ins and outs. So first we need to talk about the LFO tree or triangle, or LFO square out, which are going to be this one and this ones. All right, we're going to talk about this too, because with these ones we can test a lot of what's going on the other patch base. So so on this synthesizer you have the LFO right here, and you can do two waveforms, which is the square and the triangle. So you get the same thing but as an out on the patch bay. So you can still control the rate and everything else, but this outs can go to something else and trigger a modulation by using the LFO. So you get two main outs. You get the triangle and you get a square. So, the two main waveforms. So if we wanted to, we can use the out of one of these outputs and patch it on something else, and we can, run that modulation. Let's say I want to use a triangle. Okay, so this is going to be my triangle. Now, of course, the labels are going to be on top of the cables right there. So when I patch something in, it's going to be a little bit different to see. And notice I'm giving you, every time I patch something, I'm going to give you a label on the screen, just telling you what are the connections, which out is going to which in. So in this case, I'm going to use the LFO Tri out, and I'm going to go to the cutoff because it's something that we can really hear. I'm going to go there and just plug it in. So if I go maybe right now and just disconnect it, we are not going to do anything. And of course, we get the default sound. And we know that we can do a little bit of modulation, and I'm going to go to the triangle. And if we go up on the VCF mod, we can do a little bit of modulation to the cutoff, something like that. Right? And I'm going to go to the LFO, and again, I'm going to put it right there. So we know that we can do a little bit of modulation to the cutoff. We know that. But in this case, I don't want to do it with this one, so I'm going to go all the way down on that one, and I'm going to go and connect the cutoff to this one. So now that is the one, this one is going to be doing the modulation for us, not this control, because we are just using the Patchbay, of course. Right, so in this case, we can really hear and see that is a triangle, right? So, okay, so then you have the other instruction, which is going to be this square, and that's going to be just the square. Notice that it's going kind of on and off. All right, so pretty simple. We are doing some triangle modulation with the patch. Like I've told you before, whenever you connect something right here, you're not overriding whatever that you're doing right there. So if I disconnect this one again, and I'm going to go to a square right here, and I'm going to do a little bit of modulation. So we can hear that it's just, doing that modulation to the cutoff with the square wave. And we can, if I go slower, we can really notice. So if I connect the triangle to the cutoff, we make kind of a blend or kind of a combination of the triangle and the square that we are doing with this modulation. And notice it sounds very different. Let me just do it like that. So the case is that if I go up, notice that we do get that kind of a square right now. If I go all the way down, we are just doing the other one. Let me do something like that and go up. Notice it's much more aggressive. Well, that is the square. Now, of course, since we are using the same rates, it's very hard to spot the difference. We can see the moving of the triangle, but at the same time is doing this square. So we could use a combination of both, which is, you know, something cool. All right. So the LFO outs right here are very aggressive. Are going from all the way down to all the way up, right? So we don't have an attenuator just like this to decide how much we want to do. We will talk about that in a minute. But in the case of this one, notice that we have other options. So for this connection, we can invert the polarity. So now we are doing negative on the square and we are doing positive on the triangle. So if I do something like here, notice that the sound is going to change. And if I disconnect it, it's going to be like that. And if I connect it, we're still doing the same, and we can notice the difference a little bit better right now. That it's kind of doing a blend of the square, negative, and the triangle. If I go faster, it's just going to be a little bit better, you know, just a bit more usable. And again, we can do the same thing, but the opposite way. I'm going to use a square right here. And on this one, I'm going to be using a triangle. And if I go all the way off, all the way down, you're just getting the on and off of this patch. But as soon as I go up, we can see it kind of a sliding. That is the triangle. And we go a little bit slower. And all the way off, we get the on and off of the square. And then we get the triangle. Right. Now, some things that you need to know is that if you're using the same sound source and you invert the polarity, you're just going to be kind of canceling the same thing. Let's say I want to use a triangle. That's going to be a good example. Maybe just a square because it's just a bit more aggressive. I'm going to go right here all the way to the square, and we are doing the same amount, the same modulation, right? A square to the cutoff, and right here we are doing square to the cutoff. Now, if I keep it in positive, nothing is going to happen, right? We are just going to pretty much get the same thing. If I go up and I go up on the intensity, we just get the same thing. There's not a lot of difference. It's just a little bit more aggressive. Now, if I do negative, we are going to be canceling each other, right? Because this one is doing the same instruction and this one is doing the same, but now we are inverting the polarity. So we are just canceling whatever it is that we are doing. And this is bad, but at the same time, you know, you can just get a blend of this and just get different types of sounds. Right. Now, there's a better way to do this, to control whatever it is that we do with the modulation, with the LFO outs, but we are not ready for that. First, I want to cover the cutoff that we are already using and the res in. All right, so the BCF cutoff, it's going to be doing that. We can modulate the cutoff with whatever other instruction. Right now, we are just using an LFO, but you can use whatever you want later. You can use an envelope or maybe noise or maybe an oscillator, even an oscillator, or maybe a different synthesizer. Why not? Now, in this case, now we know that but we can modulate that by connecting something. Now, you can still connect something like the LFO, and right here you have the VCF res. Well, that's going to be the resonance. If I patch it right here, and notice that we are starting very easy with the most easy kind of patch ins and outs. Then we're gonna talk about the other ones, the more complex ones. So right now we are doing the same thing, and you can still run a modulation with whatever you want. Maybe I'm gonna keep it on square, and I'm gonna go all the way down. And if I do something, of course we get nothing because we are doing no modulation, and we are doing a little bit of cutoff. If I go a little bit up, we are gonna be getting something. And notice that there is something in the background. Well, that is the triangle modulating the resonance. And notice that the resonance is all the way down. Of course, if I go up, we're going to get a much more, a greater effect. But if I go down, of course, we get the very little. Now, if I go up on this one, we are modulating the cutoff with the pre-wired LFO. And the triangle is just modulating the resonance. Now, of course, we can do the opposite, go to the square and have that one modulate the resonance, and then have this one maybe use a triangle or use the same thing and do the cutoff, which is going to get, of course, a different sound. Right. Okay, so we are going to be talking about what we can do with this ones. And on this one, if we go to the patch bay, we have a lot of ins and a couple of and one out for this. We have the mix 1, the mix 2, the VC mix, and then we have the VC mix out right there. So we have a lot of things going on, in terms of the mix. That's why this one is so important. So right now we know that whenever we use LFO, we cannot control the intensity or how much we are doing. So, well, what we can do, we can use this VC mix as an AB or kind of a blend control. We can blend between one source and a different one because we have mix in 1 and mix in 2, or we can use it as an attenuator. Right? We can just kind of use it like this control where we are doing an LFO. And if we go all the way down, we are doing nothing. And as we go up, we do more of whatever modulation we are running right here. Well, we can use it like that. But of course, we need to do some patching right here. Now, later in a few minutes, I'm gonna show you a trick so we can decipher which values are going to be outputting some of these knobs, because you can connect maybe a cable, I don't know, to the in this case, since we are talking about the VC mix, and you can connect this to a multimeter and just see which values this one is outputting. And I'm going to show you that in a couple of minutes, because I need to bring the multimeter and just going to adjust the camera. So first I want to get this done so you can understand it, and then we are going to see what this is outputting. Now, the main idea of VC mix is that we can connect maybe 2 sources or maybe 1 source, and then we can control it. Right. So we know we have an LFO 1 and an LFO 2, the triangle, and then we have a square. Okay. So what I want to do a modulation on the cutoff, and we know how to do this. Now, instead of going directly there, what we can do, we can go through the VC mix. Now, I'm going to go to LFO 1, and I'm going to connect it to the mix of 1. So now, notice that this control, it says mix 1 and mix 2. So this half, this part of this control is going to be the triangle. So I'm going to be connecting the square, and the square is going to go all the way to to the mix 2, right? So this side of the control is going to be the square. So now let me just bring another cable. And what we can do, we can use the out of VC mix because we are connecting something to the in of this. So now this one is receiving an instruction. We get a triangle right here and we get a square right here. So we can go out of this one and connect it whatever you want. And this control works as a blend. So let me just show you. I'm going to the VC mix out of here. And this one is a long cable. So let me just put it right there. And we're going to go to the cutoff, right? Because we've been working with the cutoff, and it's something that, we can really hear what it's doing. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it maybe all the way to mix 1. And we want to do some modulation with the cutoff. So we need to make sure that this one, it's kind of all the way off, right? And I'm going to go down in resonance. So if I go right here, now we're going to be doing some kind of modulation, right? Right, and we can know that because that's what we are doing. Now I'm all the way to the mix 1. And we are getting that triangle modulation. And if I move the rate, we can easily hear that we are doing that. Now, as I go to the other way, notice that on the other side, and maybe the white cable is just kind of in the way. Let me just move it. There we go, just a little bit better. Maybe right there. Okay, so sometimes working with the camera, really sucks, but that's the way it is. So right now what I want to do, again, I want to move to the other side. I want to move this knob to the other side. We get a triangle, and as soon as I start moving it, and this control has a sweet spot, I'm gonna show you that later. Notice that the instruction is gonna start to change. And there it changed. And now instead of doing a triangle, we are doing a blend of a square and a triangle, which is the same thing we did before. But as soon as I go to the other way, we start to get more square until we get full square. So this control now, when you connect something to the in and the two in, you're getting kind of a blend control. This works as a blend of something. And right now we are using an LFO, but you can connect whatever and then use it as a blend. Maybe use an oscillator. Why not? Yeah, you can do whatever you want right here. So this control now, it's kind of working as a blend control because we are connecting 2 sources to the mix 1 and the mix 2, right? We have the side A and the side B. But notice that it's also saying low and high. So yeah, we can do some other things with this. We can use it maybe as an attenuator. So, I'm going to go and maybe remove all the cables and we're going to start again. And I'm going to show you the other way of using the VC mix. Okay, so no patching right there. So what I want to do the same example than before. The example that where we cannot control how much we are doing. So in this case, I'm going to go to the triangle, and we know that the triangle is going to be super aggressive, and we go to the cutoff, and we know how this works, right? It's going to be like super aggressive. We cannot control it, right? So I want to control it. I want to grab this one right here, and I'm going to put it on the end of the BC Mix 2, on the end of Mix 2. So now this one is receiving an instruction, but it's going to be on this side. So now what we can do, we can grab the out of the VC mix, and instead of just going to any other place, we are going to go to the cutoff, right? So now if I go all the way down on this control and I play something, notice I'm getting no modulation. Now remember that we are connected to the mix 2. So as soon as I go up, we are going to start getting slowly that modulation. And this is the way we get to control it. Right now it's not super aggressive. We get something, and if we go up, up, and up, it's going to get more aggressive and aggressive, right? And this is because we are connecting it to the mix 2. So we do a slowly introduction of that. So now we are using this as an attenuator, just like we use this control or any of the other controls. So if you connect it to the mix 1, it's gonna work the same way, but now you're connecting it to this side. So you need to start from this. This is gonna be like the no modulation, and you need to go to the other way just to get the modulation. But this is gonna be like all the way in. So it's just a little bit different. Now, if the case is that you really want to use it as an attenuator, to use this control and make sense, maybe the mix 2 works a little bit better. All right. So, again, this control, the VC mix, it's one of the most important controls on the synthesizer when you use the Patchbay, because you have two main uses for this. So for example, without going any further, let's say that we want to do the same thing we did before, right? We want to do a combination of the internal pre-wiring and this one. But since we have no control over what we are doing right here, again, we just cannot control it. So in this case, I'm going to go to the square LFO, and I go all the way down. I know that that's going to be the square. So I'm going to go right here and do a triangle, and I'm going to start modulating this with the triangle. And I kind of like that, but I would love a little bit of a square. So now we are in control because we can go and introduce a little bit of square. And notice the sound is going to change. And we can decide how much we want to do. We want to go really aggressive or just do a little bit. All right. So yeah, one of the most important controls, if not the most important control. All right, so the next ones on the list are going to be OSCV in and OSFM in, and is this one right here and this one right there. So they're kind of a similar on a kind of a certain way, but they're very different at the same time. So the CB, it's going to be the control voltage. Now the oscillator CB is a 1 volt per octave. So if we connect something right there that is going to go by, maybe 1 volt up, or it's going to be something super aggressive, it's going to go super crazy because it's going to be 1 volt per octave. And I can show you this. For example, our LFO is going to go from -5 to +5. So it's bipolar, -5 volts and then to +5 volts. So it's going to go -5, -4, -2, -3. I'm sorry, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and going up, right? So it's going to go into from on that range. So that one is going to be bipolar. So if the control CV is going to be 1 per octave, imagine that every time that we move 1 volt up, it's going to go 1 octave up, because that's what that is going to be controlling. It's going to be controlling pretty much the control voltage, which is, the frequency right here. So if I go to maybe something like, I don't know, LFO, let's connect the triangle. Why not? And I'm going to go to the CV right there. And now we are doing modulation to the control voltage. I'm going to be playing something, and notice how it's just going crazy. And it's going up and down. So yeah, it's like us going to that control and doing all the way down, all the way in, and it's going all the way down and all the way in. And it's because, again, this one is a very aggressive kind of an output for that control, at least. So, it's kind of a useful, but maybe not that useful. Now, if I go all the way down on this one, notice that we all are going to get a different instruction because we start from different places. And if I go all the way up on this one, again, the instruction is going to start upper because we are going into upper octaves. So it depends, on where you start, you're going to hear more or less of the sweep. Right, so again, that's cool, but maybe, we need to kind of use it on a better way, right? Because the LFO in this case, it's super aggressive. So now that we know that we can attenuate it, we can control how much of that we are doing. So I'm going to be going to the mix 2 and use it as an attenuator. We are still using the triangle, but now I'm going to go out of the VC mix. I'm going to go all the way down, and I'm going to connect it to the control CV of the oscillator. So now the modulation is controllable, right? We are not doing anything, but as soon as I go up, we are going to get a much more control instruction. And in this case, let me go up, down a little bit on the frequencies. In this case, we are getting a vibrato. And as you go up, it's going to be much more aggressive until we reach the same thing that we were doing before. But again, now it's controllable. And since we are using LFO, again, this could be used as a vibrato. Right, so now it sounds cool. We can do that and add a little bit of vibrato to, to the oscillator. So then you have the other one. The other one, it's going to be called FM. It says OSC FM, and it means frequency modulation. So the frequency of a waveform pretty much can affect the main waveform that we are using right here, which is, kind of what we are doing right now. We are just affecting it in some fashion. There's a difference. Maybe you can watch. I have some other kind of videos about this, talking about this. But notice that if I go right here to the OSC mix and I do the same thing, I'm going to do the same trick. I'm going to start going up, and it starts to move, and at some point we are going to be getting the same thing, but it's not so aggressive, right? The other one was much more aggressive. And if I go all the way up, we don't get that craziness. And it's because, of course, the other one works in a different way. It's frequency modulation. Now, at the end of the day, when you do, if you grab an LFO and you start modulating the frequency of whatever oscillator, if you go to oscillator rates, which means that you go super fast, you're gonna start, getting this FM kind of a sound, this FM kind of a vibe. So in this case, this LFO can go really fast. So if I do something like that, we're just going to get pretty much a vibrato, which is what we were getting on the other one. But as soon as I go all the way up on the LFO and we start going faster, the sound is going to start changing. And notice that now we are just entering into the FM world. Welcome. Right. Now, of course, we are getting this frequency modulation. It's not so nice because we are using an LFO. Maybe you can use a different oscillator from a different synthesizer, or maybe a couple of oscillators that have, you have a different waveform, and you can just connect it right here, and you're going to be doing a little bit of frequency modulation. And again, this cable is just driving me crazy. Now it's this one. Okay, sometimes it's just the way it is. Okay, so yeah, so you can do that. You can connect your other synthesizer. Maybe if you have a Neutron is a great companion synthesizer for this one. And this one, again, is a great companion for Neutron. So yeah, you can just connect something right there and just get something else. Now, the main problem when we use an LFO this function to do frequency modulation. If we go all the way up, trying to get some kind of a frequency modulation, we are going to get that. But the thing is that the LFO rate of the LFO, it's never changing. It's constant. So when we play a key, the oscillator, of course, the frequency changes so we can hear the pitch of whatever sound that comes out. We are doing a C. That's going to be, and let me just go all the way down this one. That's going to be a C, and it has a frequency, and we have kind of a speed for that one. And if I go there, we have a different frequency, so we have a different kind of a thing. So everything is going to change when we kind of play different keys. That's why we are able to kind of hear the different pitches and different tones. Now the LFO has no idea how to do this. It's just going on that speed. It goes that speed, and it doesn't matter if I'm playing this, or this. It's just always going to go the same speed at the same rate. Now, in a minute, we're going to talk about some of the some of the ins that we have, because we can run a modulation right here to the rate, and we can control how fast this can go when we play the keys. All right, so now we're, again, I'm going to go to no modulation all the way on the cutoff. So we are starting from a kind of a default patch, and we need to talk about the LFO rate in, which is going to be this one. And we need to talk about the CB out, the keyboard CB out, and we need to talk about the envelope out. Now we're going to do that trick that we just talked about, talked a minute ago, which is going to be controlling how fast this goes, and depends on which key we press. So okay. So the keyboard CB is going to be the one in charge to know which key you're pressing, and depending on which key you're pressing, the voltage is going to be different. So whenever you send more voltage to something or less voltage, you're going to be affecting whatever other control, because everything works in voltage, even the LFO rate, right? So in the case, I'm going to go right there and just give you an example. And we need to do something right here to do some kind of a rate. And what we can do, we can affect how the rate goes, if it goes faster or slower, depending on which key we press. So if I do something like that and I do a little bit of modulation, we know that we are doing that speed, that rate to the cutoff. But now what I want to do, I want to go faster on this one. So I'm going to go to the keyboard CB out, and I'm using a longer cable so I can move it out of the screen. And I'm going to go right there and just connect it to the LFO rate in. So now, since every key we press is going to be outputting a voltage, we're going to be affecting how this control works. And I'm going to stand on maybe the C4, right there, on that octave. And when we do something, we are doing a modulation. And if I go up, notice it's kind of going faster, 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 and faster. And if we keep going octaves up, it's just going to keep going faster, faster, faster. If we go up, right. So whatever key we press is, of course, being outputted right here, and it's telling the LFO rate how to behave. Now, this control still works, because if I go all the way up, we are going faster. The only difference is that, of course, if I play a key, we are going to go faster much earlier if we go up in frequencies. So this control still, still works. So remember, now we are just kind of controlling the speed of the rate with the keyboard. So, we are adjusting the speed. So remember the problem that we have before when we use the oscillator FM. We cannot control the speed of the rate. The rate is going to be the same, but now every key will affect the rate. So, we can use that instruction. In this case, again, let me just try to get a different cable, a cable that's just not going to sit in front of your screen, in front of the camera, in front of the camera. So maybe, again, we want to do some OSC FM, right? And we want to do it with the triangle. Now we are affecting how the LFO is going. And I'm going to go all the way down on that one. And we are just pretty much doing no modulation on the cutoff. We want to modulate the FM right here. So I'm going to go to LFO Tri or triangle. And then I'm going to go to the oscillator FM. And now we know that we are going to be running some modulation or frequency modulation on the LFO. Now, since we are going super slow on this LFO, you're just gonna get that vibrato. But as soon as you keep moving up, and we go to higher rates, there's gonna be a point where it's going to kind of stabilize. So you need to find kind of the right spot. I believe that's a spot. But notice that we get something. Right, so we are getting that kind of a frequency modulation. Is going to be, of course, a bit more aggressive because we are modulating that. But now it's going to be a little bit more controllable because we are going up in speed depending on which key we press. And now again, sounds more like a synthesizer, and it's just not going kind of out of sync when we use just an LFO to do the FM. And this could sound really cool if I do some play right here. Of course, I'm gonna go up in the tempo. And maybe I'm gonna do no sustain. Maybe we can even do a little bit of envelope right here. Right there. Maybe no cutoff. Gonna do something like that. All right. So let me just go to positive. There we go. And notice that we get a kind of a different sound. Right. Now I'm gonna do a square. So we can get a little bit more lows. And I'm gonna go down on the resonance. And then again, it kind of sounds cool, but remember that this one is giving us that greediness. So if I start moving this, it will change the timbre. And you can find different spots. Now, if you go super slow, you're going to go into LFO territory, and it's just going to give you that vibrato. There it goes. Now it's going to be stable. It's going to be not stable until we get stable. If you go up, and again, you need to find the sweet spot right here. Right. So just doing this, you just can really get really cool sounds. Imagine if you bring a second synthesizer and you start, modulating that with the same pitch. So let me just go back to what we had from before. Go back to a default patch. I'm going to go back here. We're going to add the sustain, a no cutoff, go back, and then go back. And we are just pretty much there. I'm going to keep it on a saw because it's just kind of easier to hear. Now remember that we can still use the VC mix to kind of control everything that we do. In this case, we are just not using it for anything, but if you wanted to, you could just control it or just connect it to the LFO rate to the VC mix, and then you can control the rate from there. Maybe you're doing something like we are doing right now, right? And let me do a little bit of cutoff, and I'm going to be doing that modulation with the rate. I'm doing an envelope. I'm going to use an LFO. Right, so I'm going to kind of doing something like that. Maybe just do it like that. So right now we are just doing that. And again, notice that this one is just controlling the rate. So we're going really slow, but it can go really down or maybe go super slow. And again, with the VC mix, we are just going to go faster and just alter the way it works. Again, one of the most useful controls is this one. Right. So what if you wanted to control the rate maybe with a different instruction, like an envelope? And we have this envelope. So that's why we get the ENV out. We can connect something right there and control whatever we want. In this case, we can control the cutoff or the resonance, for example, what we did earlier with the LFOs, just the same idea. But now we can control the rate if we wanted to. And notice that it's going to go super aggressive as soon as we do something. And it's because this one is, of course, super fast. But what we could do, we could just make this slower, and we can use the ENB on, right? And as soon as I press something, it's going to go faster. It's going to go faster in a slower fashion. And I'm going to go down there. As soon as I press something, it's going to go slow, faster, and then it's going to slow because we have a decay. In this case, I'm going to go sustain all the way down. And as soon as I release, it's going to go down. So again, we are controlling the rate with the envelope out. And you can do this with whatever pretty much you want. With the resonance, with the maybe the cutoff, that is something that we are already doing with this control. But yeah, you can do it. Alright. Maybe I'm gonna go right here, since we are not using the envelope, and I'm gonna do no modulation, and we can use the oscillator FM. Right? Again, we can do that as well. And as soon as I play something, notice that we are going to get that instruction. Now, of course, I'm going to do something like that. Again, you're just controlling it with the envelope. At the end of the day, it's just completely up to you and what to do. Right. So again, let me just go back. So as we can see, if I go to this one, which is a little bit more aggressive, let me just go there and do the same thing. I'm gonna go there. Notice that the instruction is just gonna be much more aggressive, right? So again, the envelope is just gonna be modulating that, but just much more aggressive way. So what we can do, again, go out of the envelope, just take the envelope, go maybe to, I don't know, mix 2 in this case, and I'm going to go all the way down in the mix, and we can go grab the BC mix out and go to someplace else, like doing the modulation, and we can control the frequency, and we can control how much we are doing from there on there. I'm going to go from the BC mix out, and then go all the way to the oscillator CB, and we can run that modulation and control it a little bit more. Right now, I'm not doing anything, and if I turn off the envelope for the amp, this envelope is just being unused because we are not using it right here. But maybe I do want to do something, so if I go up, we are just using it like that. Maybe I'm gonna do something smaller. And all the in-betweens. If you want to go really crazy. Right. So again, at the end of the day, this is just an envelope, and we can use it to modulate something else with the envelope. Now again, we only get one envelope for pretty much doing a lot of things, to run this modulation, to run modulation right here, to control the amp. So maybe just having one envelope, it's kind of sucks just a little bit. It would be nice to get a second envelope that we can route to do something else. That's why you maybe a second synthesizer, or maybe a different module that gives you that extra envelope. It's going to help you to just, control everything a little bit better just by patching whatever other envelope you have available to the ins that you have right here. All right, so this got nothing to do. This is something a little bit extra that I want to show you, that maybe you're going to be interested in doing this. Maybe you have one at home, and you can use it to test what comes out of your outs. And I use it for different purposes, but in this case, I'm going to use it for this. I'm going to connect the cable on the BC mix on this one, right on the out of this one. And I want to see which values I'm getting from this control. And of course, this is just not doing anything, right, to the sound. But what you can do, and I'm going to bring it right now and just, again, show you how to use it. You can bring a multimeter. In this case, I'm just going to put it right there so you can see it. I guess, it looks okay. Now, the multimeter, let me just put it right there. The multimeter helps you to measure whatever this one it's outputting, and you can see the values. And remember, everything works in volts. So by connecting the negative and the positive, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now, you can see how the values, or how this knob will behave in terms of which volts, or how many volts it's going to be outputting, which values you're going to get out. Now, in this case, doing it with this is not very not very useful. Now, what you need to do is you have your black one, which is the negative, and you have the red one, which is the positive. Now, of course, this cable has two sides. You have this line. Maybe you can see it right there on the camera. Let me just move it right there. You have the black line. Well, everything below the black line is going to be the negative, and everything above the black line is going to be the positive. So what you need to do, you need to connect this to the negative and this to the positive. Now, doing it with this is just a little bit uncomfortable, right? So what you can do, you can just buy, and I didn't have any, so I had to kind of quickly build some clamps right here. I have some clamps, and I did it with some extra cable that I had from, different thing. And what you can do right here, you just can connect this one, right? And this clamp is going to go right there. Let me just do it properly. And the red one, of course, you're going to be using the red one for the red one. Let me just get it right there. So there you go. You have the black one and you have the red one. So then, of course, you have the other side of the black one, which is going to be this one, right? And then you have the red. So what you are going to need to do, now let me just do it. I'm going to grab the cable, this cable, and we can connect the red one. Remember, this one is the positive. You're going to be putting it right here. Sometimes you need to be careful not to touch anything else. And then you have the positive. I'm sorry, the negative. This one is the positive. The black one is the negative. And you're going to be connecting it right there. So now you have this connection. Let me just put it on camera right there. So now this cable is going to be outputting some kind of instruction. Now, when you turn the multimeter on, you have two sides. You have the direct current and you have the AC, right? So you have AC and DC. You need to be on the DC line, and this is the symbol of the DC. So you're going to need to put it on, I don't know, something like 20. That's it's going to work. And this one will start outputting a value. I'm going to be putting a light. Maybe you can see it. So right now, if we start moving this control, this will provide an instruction, and the multimeter will start telling me how much of this control we are doing. And this is kind of a not super sensitive. If I move it just like that, I'm getting less. But as soon as I hit that there, then it's going to start outputting some kind of a value. And notice that I reach right here. We are almost there. And as soon as we get right here, this is going to be like the sweet spot. And we are going to be, let me bring the light again. Maybe you can see it without the light. Let me just check the camera. Oh yeah, you can see it without the light. So let me just leave the light off. And as soon as you move it, you're going to start getting different values. So you can measure whatever out or whatever information, whatever value you get from the other outs. So if we go right here at the kind of at the center, we are around half, which is okay. And then we are going to be going all the way up, and this value, this is what this is outputting. And remember, I told you this one is going to give you from 0 to 5 volts. Well, it's going to be a little bit more. Sometimes, it's not exact. So it's just a little bit more. So now you know how much of this, this is outputting. So the same way you can do with an LFO. If I go to an LFO, remember that the LFO is going to go to negatives and positives. And I'm going to make the LFO really slow so we can really see the instruction. And notice it's going from -5 and sudden change, and then going to +5 and change. So yeah, using a multimeter, you can just check which values or what values you get out of this different outputs. And yeah, this is just a nice trick, something that you can use. It's kind of a geeky. And I have this because in the past, I used to build pedals and I used to mod guitars. So you need to have a multimeter if you want to mod guitars, right? You need to check all the connections and everything else. That's why, I kind of quickly build this cables, because I'm not doing that anymore. I used to do it. Not doing that anymore, but yeah, I couldn't find some good clamps with good cables. And I didn't want it to ruin my good cables, just for, a dumb example. So, but yeah, you can do something like this and just, get a bit more geeky about your synthesizer and see what you get out of each out. Okay, so let's just keep moving. Let's see if I'm, I didn't mess it up with the multimeter. Everything is cool. All the controls, I didn't move anything. Cool. So we are back to a default patch. And on this one, we need to talk about OSC mod. Which OSC mod? So right here, we have this name that says EMV and then OSC mod. So when we know that when we do something right here, and this is the attenuator, we are going to be doing some modulation. Let's do, I'm going to go to square, and we are on the width right here. So we are going to be modulating with maybe the envelope, the width of the oscillator. So if I maybe just turn this on, it's just a little bit too loud. Let me just put it right there. Notice that every time that we press something, the width is going to be modulated. Right, so this is what we do with this control, right? We could do either an LFO or use the envelope to do some kind of modulation. Well, this is the whole purpose of the OSC mod, which is the one we have right here at the top. We can connect something right there and we can bypass the envelope from this control. Now, the attenuator will still work. Now, let me just give you an example. Right now, we are doing something like that. And notice that we are doing that modulation. Let me just make it a little bit more obvious. Let me do, there we go. Right. And I'm going to go sustain all the way down. So we know we are doing some kind of modulation. There we go. Now it's just super obvious. Okay, so there we go, something like that. I had to adjust the oscilloscope, it was a bit laggy. Now we are doing modulation with the envelope and the pulse width. Now as soon as I connect the OSC mod right here, I'm going to plug in something and I'm going to leave this one disconnected. And if I play something, notice that nothing is happening. We are just, of course, getting the envelope on the amp, but we are not doing any modulation to the envelope right now, because by connecting something to the OSC mod, we are killing the pre-wiring of the envelope that we have on this control. So we are just severing that connection. We don't have that connection anymore. And this means that we can connect it to something else to do a modulation. That's why it says OSC mod. This means external or, some other source for the OSC modulation instead of an envelope. So we can do a lot of things. Let's say I want to do an LFO triangle. It's going to be pointless because we can already do an LFO, but just to give you an example. And I'm going to keep this one open. Notice that we are able to do that modulation. I'm going to go up on the sustain so I just can hold keys. It is that we are doing that, but again, we can already do that if we go to the LFO. Okay, so let's do something else. I'm gonna just give you a different example. Right now, we are on the square right now, and we are just doing no C modulation all the way down, all the way up in the sustain. That's gonna be my kind of a starting point. And what I want to do, I want to use the VC mix to create a kind of a combination of something else to do the OSC mod, because just using an LFO, we can already do it right there. Why doing the same example? So I'm going to be connecting the envelope, and right now I'm just going to bring different colors, and I'm going to go to the mix number 1. So my VCA is going to be on the mix number 1. Now I want to do something else on the mix number 2. Now right here you can use a different synthesizer, or maybe in this case I'm going to be using the out of the square, and that one is going to go to the number 2. Right? So now what we can do, we can go out of VC mix, and from VC mix we are going to go to the OSC mod. And I'm going to go all the way down there to the OSC mod. So now instead of just getting, a very normal instruction or just standard instruction, just like an LFO, we are going to be getting a blend of both. Now, in this case, I'm going to be going to on. So we're going to have a constant oscillator. And notice that we are just not getting anything. Now, if I go to the VC mix out, up, and I do the same thing, we just get nothing. Now, why we get nothing? And it's because this control, this one still works as an attenuator. So we need to provide something right here so we can start doing some kind of modulation. And notice that we are getting that. Now, we are doing width, we can do frequency, but in this case, I'm just going to be doing width. And as I go up, we get that LFO that we are using. We can still control the rate. But remember that I want maybe a little bit more of the envelope. So the envelope will work right here. Because again, we have envelope on the A and then the LFO on the B. Notice that we are getting a combination of the square and the envelope now. So we have a mutant. Right. So there you go. Just maybe just a simple example. Okay, so let's just keep going. We could have already covered a lot of things, and we still have more to go. Now, notice that right now we are kind of reaching into the more specific kind of thing. Well, with the multimeter, with the mix, with the OSC mod. So first, we covered all the common things that you can do, like the the modulation with the LFO, maybe the FM or the control voltage of the frequency, all the the usual stuff and the easy stuff that you can do at first. Now we are just entering into the more, the dark side of the Patchbay. So we need to talk about the external audio in, the square, and the SAW out. So for example, right now we know that the OSC mod, when we go to this side of the switch, to the left side, we can connect an external SAW source to the OSC mod, and this could be a different synthesizer or maybe a different module or whatever is that you want to do right here, just like we did on the previous example. So then on the other one, on this side, you have this mix, right? And it says external noise, and then it says OSC. So we know when we play this, we can use a combination of the OSC that we are using and noise, right? If we go all the other way, we are going to be getting noise. Now this switch, of course, belongs to this section, so... Right, so now what we can do, notice it says EXT dash and then noise. So that's going to be the external audio in. Just like the OSC mod, we can use external gear to provide a modulation there. Now on this one, we can connect something else that maybe it's an external synthesizer, or maybe something else from the Patchbay, which is can connect it, and that's going to be the external, and that is the external audio in. So right now, again, we can do whatever the oscillator is doing, and we can do noise. What happens if I don't want to do that noise? I want to do something else. So I'm going to be using the two outs that you have right here. And notice it says OSC pulse and then OSC SAW. So behind the scenes, the oscillator is just kind of outputting the SAW and the square at the same time. The only difference is that you're selecting which one you want to hear. But behind the scenes on the synthesizer, that sound, that pulse or SAW are constantly going, right? So again, the only difference is the switch. You're just selecting which one you want to hear. But behind the scenes, they just run. So what you can do in this case, let's say I'm using pulse right here, right? Okay, so on this one, we have the SAW and we have the pulse. So what I can do, I can just connect the SAW right there, and now we have a SAW connected to this input or this cable, and that is going to be the SAW out. Now what I can do, I can go to the in of the mix. Now notice that it's going to be called external audio in. Now don't confuse mix CB with the mix CB. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be called external audio. So it's going to be that one, this one. So once we connect this one right here, we are going to be connecting something else to the external audio. So now if I do play, or just play something, we are getting that square, but if I go to the other side, we are going to get that SAW. The SAW that we are outputting right here. As soon as I disconnect it, we get back to noise. Right. So by doing this, you can either connect maybe some other instruction right here, like the SAW or the pulse, or even the noise, maybe just to make a combination. We can talk about that later. Or maybe a different synthesizer with a different different sound, and that is going to be flowing on the EXT noise side of things. Now, since now we are using, and this control works like the mix in blend mode, we can blend a little bit of the square and a little bit of the SAW, and we get a square and a SAW. So yeah, we are just doing a blend of both. Cool. Just using the same example, again, we could use a combination of multiple things, like an external oscillator, or maybe just using the same SAW with a little bit of noise, because right now we are losing that noise, but you do have a noise out right here. So instead of just doing this directly, maybe again, we could use the same good old trick. We can go to mix 1, and then we can grab the noise, and from the noise out, we are going to be going to the mix 2. And now we have on the VC mix, the A is going to be the SAW, and the B on the order, the mix 2 is going to be the noise. So we have a combination. Now we can grab that combination and go and use it on the external audio out. So VC mix, we are going to go to the external audio out, to EXT audio. And I'm working in a very small space. That's why I'm just kind of, it's hard to connect the cables. And because I have the camera, the microphone, the lights and everything else. So it's just a little bit hard. So now if I do something, of course, if I go all the way down here, we get the square. But if I go all the way down here, up here, we just get the saw. And it's because we are on the A side. As soon as we go to the other side, we're just going to be getting noise. And we control it with this control. Now maybe I don't want all noise, but I just maybe want that saw with a little bit of noise. And you're going to be making with this one a combination between the square and the saw with the noise. So now you're using three sources, the saw, the square, and the noise at the same time. All right, since now we can of course use a different mod source by patching something, and we can use an external sound just to, of course, get something else from here. We are kind of ready for the next thing, which is going to be the mix CB and the VC mix, and this is effing confusing. So notice right here at the top, you're gonna find something that says VC and then mix, right? So this N is going to be for this knob. It's for us to move this knob programmatically, not with our hand, of course, but it's like, moving it. And then you have the other one, which is going to be mix CB. And again, it's just, a little bit confusing because they just look pretty much the same. They're very similar, the name at least. So this mix CB is going to be this one, the control voltage for this one. So we're going to be modulating this knob. Now to put this easier, let's just say that whenever we move the cutoff and we provide some kind of a modulation like an LFO, right, we are just moving the cutoff behind the scenes. So the pre-wiring, it's telling the LFO, the pre-wiring is using the LFO to move this knob up and down. That's why we get that effect, right? Well, the VC mix and the other one, it's going to be pretty much the wiring to do that modulation that we are doing here, of course, with a different source, with whatever we patch right there. But it's like modulating this knob, right? So, of course, we want to use it and provide an example. So let's say that maybe I want to use the first one. I'm going to talk about this one first. And remember, we are doing an OSC, and I'm going to go, no modulation for now. We can do the oscillator, which is going to be a pulse, or we can just do noise. So what I want to do something, and I want some kind of modulation right here. I want to get, I want to move that knob. So I'm going to be using the LFO trigger, the LFO triangle, not trigger. And I'm going to be going to that mix CB. So now the LFO is going to be modulating the CB of this control. Now, if I play something, notice that we get it. Now, of course, as we already discussed, that instruction and the square, it's a little bit too aggressive. So the modulation is going to be aggressive and we have no way to control it unless we go to, an attenuator. So if I go all the way up, this is going to change, so it's a different thing. And if I go all the way up, you're going to get more noise and less square. And if I go faster, you're just going to get a different thing, right? That sounds like a cool thing. I would put a reverb and a delay right there. So okay, so of course, right now again the instruction is just a little bit too aggressive. We could go through an attenuator and just pretty much do the same thing, right? Now we can even use an envelope if we wanted to. Now, just like the LFO, the envelope is just a bit too aggressive. It's just going to be a bit too much. If I go there and I go there and just maybe go there and provide an envelope with instructions, something like that, I'm going to go down on the sustain because we don't need it. Notice that as soon as I play something, it's just all the way to the other side on the mix. And we are getting pure noise and then going back to the square. So maybe I don't want that, right? Maybe we don't want that. So what we can do, we can maybe connect this one to the mix in of one, and we can control it just maybe a little bit better. Maybe I'm going to go to the mix 2. Why not? So now we are going through there, and we can go VC mix out, and we can go to the mix of this one. And now we have an attenuator, right? So we can use it. So if I do something, we get nothing. But as soon as I go up, notice that we get it a little bit more, but it's much more controllable. And now I'm gonna go with that there. And maybe I'm gonna do it just a little bit. And we can see it right there on the oscilloscope. And if I go more, of course we get more. Right. So yeah, you know, again, like I've told you before, the VC mix is the most useful control or patch in and out of this synthesizer. Now, then, of course, we have the other one. We have the VC mix. So this is pretty much the same idea, but instead of moving that control, we're going to be moving this control. That's what we want to move to control. So we could use the same example. Let's just build an example. Since now we know a lot, we can just create, you know, a bit more complex examples. So I want to go to the noise, and the noise is going to be going to mix 2, okay? So that's going to be my B side or mix 2 side. So then maybe I want to use the saw that we have right here. We're going to build the same example we did before. Let me just move the cables, and I'm going to go to the mix in of 1. Let me just again move the cables just to so they can be a bit more camera friendly. There you go. And of course, now we have on the mix 1, we have the saw, and on the mix 2, we have the noise. And we know that we can use that to maybe go to external audio. And again, we know how to do this. We kind of already did it. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go to, external audio right there. And I'm going to be putting the cable right there. Okay. So now, of course, maybe I'm going to go right there. And if I play something, notice that we get the saw. And if we go to VC mix, we're going to get more saw and a little bit of noise. And then if we go right here in the middle, we're just going to get a combination of both, right? The noise, the triangle, and the external audio. But maybe, again, I want to do a little bit of modulation in this one. And I want to do maybe something like that. So in this case, what we can do, we can go right here and modulate this with the triangle. And maybe right now the triangle is like super fast. Maybe I'm going to do something like that so we can see it. I'm going to connect the triangle out, and I'm going to go to the mix. And now the mix is going to be modulated by the triangle. And again, we are just going up and down, up and down. Right. And it's again, we are just doing something like that. And it's a bit more aggressive because we are not going through an attenuator, but that's the way it works. Right. So cool, you know, that's the example. Now, of course, and I go again back to the same example, you're still controlling this. So if it's too much and you want less of this, which sounds crazy. Oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. It sounds cool, but maybe it's just too much. You just can go to the other side and get a little bit less. All right. So, okay. Now, at the end of the day, like I've told you before, and I believe like I've said this, a million times already, this is a perfect synth for maybe a companion synth for a different synth like Neutron or maybe something else from a different developer. I have the, for example, the MinIlogue, the XD, and it has ins for something else, you know, CV in. And it's very limited in terms of modulation. So this could be a great companion for that synth, or maybe on any other modular synth. All right. So and again, I feel like I've said that a million times already. So okay. So of course we are going to go to a default patch. I'm going to disconnect everything, and we're going to start all over again. And then the next one, I want to show you something else. Okay, so now we need to talk about the next thing, and it's going to be the multiple, and you get 2 outs right here and 1 in. Now, the main idea of this one is going to be duplicating signal of something. So we can go to the in of whatever source we want to use, and that one is going to be duplicated by 2. You know, we could have 1 out and then another out. And maybe the best example, the best way to learn this is going to be by example. So let's say I want to use the envelope, right? This is my envelope, and I know that my envelope is just a little bit too strong sometimes. So I'm going to go to an attenuator. I'm going to go to the Mix 2 and use it as an attenuator, right? We know this. And then, of course, I'm going to go out from my VC mix, and we can go maybe, I don't know, to the Mix CB, to this one. And remember what this one does is going to go and modulate this control by some amount. I'm going to go all the way down on the VC mix, and I'm going to just turn it on, right? If I play something, nothing is going to happen. Now, the main idea is to modulate this and go to the noise side of things. And if I allow this to happen, it's just, we are going to get it every time I play a key. And notice that you have it right there on the oscilloscope. Right? So if I allow more, of course, you're going to go to much more. Now, the main idea of this, and for now, let me turn it on, turn it off. Maybe I'm going to go and do less sustain. It's going to be a little bit less, and I'm going to do a little bit of attack and a little bit of decay. Notice that we get some motion right there now. All right. Okay, so we know how this works, right? It's just very understandable, and we kind of already talked about this. My problem, and maybe you can see it, is that maybe if I want to maybe use the envelope to do something else, I just cannot do it because I'm already using it, right? I'm going out from the envelope and directly to the mix, and I cannot use it on someplace else. This is the problem. Now, the multiple is going to give me a solution because with this, what it does is going to duplicate whatever signal that you're using. It's okay. So we are still going from envelope to the mix of the two. We are still doing the attenuation. Now, instead of going out of this one, of the mix CB, what we can do, we can go to the multiple. So now the instruction that we are using for the envelope can be used by two different things, by two different ends, because we have two different outs, and it's the same instruction. So if I go out from the multiple 1 and I connect it to the mix CB, we're going to be doing the same thing, right? So if I just go back in, we get the same result, right? So far there's no difference. But now, of course, we have the other out. So we can use the same instruction to modulate a different thing. And this is the main purpose of the multiple. You're kind of duplicating something. And it's like throwing water into a gremlin or something like that. Well, maybe I'm too old for that example. Maybe you're too young for that example. So I'm going to use this second multiple to modulate something else. And I don't know, we can do the rate, for example, the LFO rate. Why not? So as soon as I do it, notice that the LFO rate is just going to be changing. Now, if I go right there, we don't see, we don't hear anything happening. We hear the other thing, the noise and the modulation of this one. But maybe I'm just going to go down and I'm going to be providing an LFO instruction to modulate this. Right? Now we get a better example. And if I play a key, we are using that envelope, and at the same time, we are doing that noise. Of course, we are cutting a lot, we get less of the noise, but notice that on this oscilloscope that the noise is there. So this is, the main purpose of the multiple. We grab one source and then we duplicate it and we can modulate two different things. Okay, so now we need to talk, and I'm back to a default patch. We need to talk about the gate out, and you can find the gate out right here. This is going to be the gate. Now, if you don't know what the gate is, a gate, it's an instruction. So when you play a key on the keyboard, this gate will open, and as soon as you release the key, the gate will close. So you have no attack. It's going to be the attack is going to be like 0%, like straight line. It's going to start as soon as you play something, as soon as you press something. And if you're holding, that gate is going to remain open because you're holding a key, and that is a gate. As soon as you release it, it's going to close, and as soon as you release the key, it's just going to stop right there. That's, how a gate works. And it looks like a square, for example. It's just like an on and off instruction. Now that is a gate. So in this case, we have this gate out, and this one is going to be listening to pretty much what you do right here on the sequencer or what you do on the keyboard. Now, you could also use a trigger, and the trigger is like a gate, but it's a much shorter instruction. We don't have a sustain stage. And in this case of gate, if I play something, we do have a sustain because we are holding a key, and of course, we hear sound. It's sustaining. If we are talking about the trigger has no idea how to sustain, so it doesn't matter if I holding a key. It's just going to fire and then it's going to close. In this case, we have a gate, and we can actually, prove this. So if I go right there to the cutoff and I make it really dark, notice that we get nothing. So at the end of the day, everything is going to be control voltage. So if I do gate right here out, every time I play a key, this gate is going to be opening and it's going to be sustaining. If I hold the key, if I release it, it's going to close. So it's going to providing an instruction. So maybe if the cutoff is dark, and I'm giving you a dumb example so you can really hear how it works. I'm going to go to the cutoff, and we know that the cutoff, it's just super dark. Now, I play something, and notice that we get it right now. We are just getting it. And it's because this instruction is telling this, move up when you play and you sustain, and when you release, go back to your original position. Right? If we disconnect it, nothing happens. And if we connect it, we get that instruction. The gate is telling the cutoff that should move up, and when we release the key, it's going to go off. Same thing works with the sequencer. The sequencer will output, will use this. So if I play this, notice that the cutoff, we get it. We can hear something because we are just moving up every time we hear, frequency on each step. If I disconnect it, still going on. We can see it right there in the spectrum. It's very low in volume, but we are not modulating anything. So the gate is very important for us, especially when we work with the keyboards and when we want to trigger something. So for example, right here, every time that we play a key or the sequencer goes on, this gate is emitting the instruction, the control, the voltage, saying something that something should be opened. And we can use this gate instruction to instruct how something should be opening and closing, just like we are doing to the cutoff. It's just opening and then closing when we release the keys. And if we are sustaining, it remains open. So the envelope is going to kind of receive this instruction as well. So you can use this gate out maybe to connect it to a different synthesizer and send an instruction of when something needs to open, something needs to close when you're playing a key or maybe you're playing the sequencer. Okay, so now we need to talk about the envelope gate, this one, right? The one right there. And notice that is an in. Okay, so if we think about this, when we play a key, especially when we are on envelope mode, when we play a key, something is opening and something is closing. Something happens behind the scenes to let the sound go, out. And when then we sustain and when we release, of course, the sound dies. There is something telling the synthesizer when to start playing or when to start, outputting a sound and when to stop. And in this case, it's going to be the gate, right? So we play a key, the sound goes out, and we release and the sound stops. Now, when the gate opens, and it depends on the synthesizer and depends on what you're using, you might be talking about gates or triggers, and they're just a bit different. They belong to the same family, but they work in a different way. In this case, we are talking about a gate. And the gate is going to do that job. It's going to tell someone to start doing its job and then when to stop doing this job, right? Now, when we play a key, we say, start doing your job and keep doing it. And when I release a key, it's going to say, stop doing your job. Now, in this case, it's going to be the envelope when we use it on a default mode. And notice we are on VC8 mode envelope. So now the envelope, the job of the envelope is to start when the gate is telling to start its job. So when I play a key, this one is just going to start doing its job. Right now, we don't hear a difference because we are all the way down on the attack, decay, and all the way down on the sustain, all the way up on the sustain. But if I do a little bit of envelope, maybe something like that, we can hear that the sound is going to fade in and then go down and then sustain at some point. So the gate is telling this envelope to start doing its job. It's going to go and do its job, like, providing a smoothing of the volume. Then it's going to decay a little bit and then it's going to sustain at some point. And we are still providing that instruction. So we are just telling with the gate, keep doing your job. As soon as I release the key, I'm pretty much saying, stop doing your job. And it's going to go down in volume. Right? So that's pretty much in a nutshell how the gate works. Now, of course, this is a family show and I'm targeting kind of all audiences. That's why I'm explaining this. But this is a very kind of a basic kind of a knowledge. And now you know it. Okay, so now what is the purpose of the envelope gate? So again, remember this envelope, it's listening to a gate. And notice it's an in. So we can use maybe a different source instead of the default gate or maybe we can make it a combination in this case, just to trigger this envelope, just to start telling the envelope, do your job. So for example, we can use a square, and remember the gate, it's like a square, right? That's how it looks. Now, of course, the LFO, the gate is going to be open, close, on and off, on and off. So if I use this and I go to the the envelope gate, notice what happens. So we are telling the envelope, do your job with the LFO. And every time that the LFO goes up and then goes down, it's of course turning on and off, on and off. Now the envelope is still doing its job, right? We can do a little bit of attack and it's still going to give us this attack. But now instead of telling or just, controlling the envelope when we play a key, we are doing it with an LFO. This doesn't matter that we cannot go right here and play something else. But we are not, in a lot of control of what we are doing right here in terms of when we trigger this. Now, of course, the speed of the LFO will just, tell the envelope how to behave. And there's going to be a point where just everything is so fast that it's just going to remain open. It's because it's super fast. All right. Okay. So let me just disconnect it for now. Now, the other thing that you can do, and this is kind of I want to say trick, remember that the VC mix also works like a turn on and off. Remember, maybe, and if you watched my previous video about the synth, when we use the glide control, we can turn it maybe 50% and up, and we're going to be turning on the control, and then we can go down and turn it off. Well, we can do something very similar with the VC mix. Now, it works in a different way. It's just like inverted. But in this case, I'm going to go to the envelope gate, and instead of using the LFO as a trigger, or maybe just just an instruction to say open and close, I'm going to be using my VC mix. Now, my VC mix is kind of all the way down, all the way maybe at middle, right here. And if I go all the way down, nothing is going to happen. And if I go all the way up, I'm opening, closed, open. So now I'm opening this on demand. I always do the same thing on each video. I don't know why. So of course now if I do some playing and stopping, this is still gonna work, of course. But if I go to the envelope, we still get it, right? Okay. Now I can go right here and use the VC mix, and notice what happens. Since we are messing with the control, with the instruction that the envelope gets, we are saying, okay, turn it off. If we go right here to this side. So now the envelope is just like disconnected from whatever it is that we are doing. And the envelope is not triggering. Even though we are going through the steps, or maybe I just playing a key, it's just not going to listen. Now if I go down, we are just going back to listen to the envelope. And let me just go down on the attack. And disable, and on. So now it's doing its job, not doing its job. Doing its job, not doing his job. Right. Okay, so let me just turn it off. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a default patch, something like that. Right, so that sounds cool. So notice that you do have some other options. So right now we are going to be starting with the sections where we talk about the ones we have right here. It's going to be the tempo, the play and stop, the reset, and the hold. And these instructions, they belong to the sequencer right here. So the first one is going to be the tempo in. And if you think about this, what can we do with the tempo in? Well, we can control the tempo, right? And when we're talking about tempo, it's going to be this tempo. If I do play and I go faster, it's going to go faster. And if I go slower, it's just going to go slower. That's going to be the tempo. So it means that maybe we can control this knob, which is going to be controlling the tempo on a different fashion. Maybe I want to patch something in to the tempo. And now, whatever we patch here is going to be controlling how the tempo will behave. So maybe, since we use the VC mix, remember to use it as a control voltage, because that's what it is, to go up or down, or maybe to turn off and then turn it on, we can use it to control the tempo. Now, if I go right there, I'm going to go to the VC mix, and now we are just connected to the tempo. And I'm going to be doing some playing, and maybe I'm going this speed, and I'm going to go up. nothing happens. And if I go down, nothing happens. Now, of course, that something needs to happen. This is outputting some control voltage, and this should be listening. Now, the thing is that the synthesizer works in a very particular way, and you need to kind of do some setting up depending on what you want to do, because maybe you're just connecting this with the computer and you don't need, maybe you're connecting it with the DAW and you don't need to handle the tempo with something else. You just, do it with your USB or your DAW, whatever is that you're using. So right now with the synthesizer, it's using the internal clock source, right? And that's what it's doing. So that's why we are not able to change the tempo with this control, because it's using the internal. It's not listening to anything else. It's only listening to the internal. So if you patch the USB cable, if you go and connect it to your computer and you go to the Synthrive application, and I'm going to show you right now on your screen, notice that you get, of course, a sequencer where you can just, do some other things, but now we're going to be focusing on the general one. And notice it says clock source and it says internal. So the main clock and everything related to the clock is going to be the internal one. So that's why we cannot alter with anything else. We just cannot, modify with anything else. Now, the cool thing is that they give you a lot of options of what you can do. You can use auto, you can use MIDI, or you can use trigger. You can use something else to trigger and to control the tempo of the device. So notice that you get a lot of options like 1 PPS or 2 PPQ, pulse per quarter, and then you get 24, 48, and then you get CB. So now, again, you can use the trigger and change or instruct your synthesizer to listen to something else to do whatever it is that you need to do. Maybe you're using a TD3, for example. Well, you're going to need to go right here. And if this one is going to be listening, you're going to need to use some of these options. I believe it's 24 or 48 on the TD3. I don't remember right now. But in this case, I want to use CB, which is this knob, is the control voltage, because this one does voltage, just like anything else. I'm going to go to CV, right? So now we are going to be triggering the clock source, and we're going to be handling it with control voltage. So that's on the configuration right now. So now we are connected. I'm going to do the same trick. I'm going to do play. And if I go now to the VC mix, I'm controlling the speed, and I can go down or up in speed. Right? Right. So very easy, very simple. Now, of course, what's, the purpose of this? Because maybe, why controlling it? What's the benefit? We are controlling it with here, but we already have it right there. Now, this one now it's accepting control voltage. So now you can use whatever of the other sources that will output an instruction to do something. In this case, maybe, let's say I want to use this square, right? As a modulation source or just as an instruction of how the tempo should behave. If I do play, that's what we get. Now remember this one, the square in this case, will provide an instruction. It has an opening and a closing stage, kind of a sustaining stage. And it's of course very short. So whenever it's open or closed, it's going to be triggering the tempo and just going up and down in tempo. Same thing, we use the triangle. It's going to be like ramping down and then going up, going down to tempo. So it's going up and down in tempo. And of course, if we go up and I offset it, you're just going to be getting different things. Maybe if I do something like that. You can just generate different things. Of course, you need to find the sweet spot right here. Maybe I'm going to go to square right now. Right. So that's, what we can do with the tempo in. We can just manage it on a different way. Now, of course, the LFO is just a little bit too aggressive sometimes. And we kind of already know that. And so for that, I just bumped the camera. So what we can do, we can just attenuate it. And, we already know the trick. So I'm going to go from the yellow out from the LFO square. And I'm going to go to the mix of number 2. And then maybe grab a different cable if I can get it. And I'm going to go from the mix to the tempo, and we can attenuate whatever it is that we are doing. So I'm going to go right there, And now I'm using the square. I'm going to do the playing. And I'm going to go all the way down on the VC mix. And now we are just a normal tempo. And if I move this, at some point, we are just going to be changing it. And we're just going to mess with that control, of course. We're going to attenuate it. Right, so that's pretty much what the tempo in means. Now at the same time, and notice right next to the same control, and for now I'm going to keep the same cables connected, you have the play and the stop. And this one means pretty much that. It's going to be playing and stopping the device on demand in this case. So if I go to the play and stop and I connect this one right here, remember we are using a square and we are attenuating it, but the square is just kind of a moving behind the scenes, just going on and on and off. I'm going to go slower. So at some point, this, when we go, it goes up or down, is going to be outputting a value, and that value is going to turn on and turn it off. So if I go and do something like that, look at the light right here of the LFO. When that is on, it's just going on and then going off, and we can see the play and the stop going on and off. So the LFO is controlling that. And of course, we are attenuating it. I'm going to go all the way in, and we can just mess with the speed of this. Now, notice, of course, that sometimes if you go really fast, it's just going to be a little bit weird. Because, of course, the instruction is a little bit different. But right now, just going to go right there and just going to do something that makes sense. Now, since this one is not something that, where we need a very specific value, or it's just going to be changing if we provide a lower value or we're going to get less. No, this is kind of an on and off. So we just can, of course, maybe turn this off first. We can disconnect everything that we have right here because it makes no sense to attenuate that control. But I can, and right now I made a mess, I can just use one single cable and just maybe go out of something and do a playing stop. And remember, this one is going to be control voltage. So I'm going to be doing VC mix, and I'm going to be going to play and stop. And we can play and stop it on demand. Now, right now it's on. If I go all the way down, it's off. On, off, on, off. Same thing with if I use a square. Now, if I use it directly, we are not using the mix. So the full length of the square, -1 plus 1, or -5 or +5 in this case, is just going to be controlling the tempo, or in this case, the play and stop. Right, and if I go on, it's just going to be a bit more fun. Right. Now, I'm going to just disconnect everything and go back to default. I'm going to go right there, and just, if I do something, we get the default. Now, everything that we are learning, again, it's just very simple. It's just how that control works. It's just, turning it on or off, pretty much. So if you go to the web, and you can find a lot of places where you can find patches about, just using Crave. And some of the connections are going to be really crazy. And if you don't know how to use the Patchbay, it's just going to be a little bit difficult to figure out what is going on and how to maybe change it, or, just change the settings and get what you really want. Because maybe the patch sounds nice, the patch that you find on the internet, and you do all the connections, it sounds nice, but you want to do some changes. If you have no idea how this works, you cannot make those changes. But now, since you know what this can do, you know how to control it, right? All right, so the next thing, and we are going in order: tempo, play and stop, is going to be reset and hold. And this is very simple. I feel like I don't need to explain this right now because we know how the tempo and the play and stop works. So the reset is just going to be resetting everything. And I do some playing, and that's my sequence, right? That's the sequence I created just to test this out. And remember, we can use the VC mix as a turn on and off kind of a switch. Or not in this case. So I'm going to be going to the reset. So the reset, if you go right here, what it will do, if you're right here, maybe on the step number 6, when you press reset on the of course this button, it's just going to go back to step number 1. That's what the reset means. You go back to step 1 wherever you are. So now, of course, you can control it with control voltage. If I go on, and it's just going to jump to the step number 1 when I turn it on. And if I keep it on, it's just going to keep on the step number 1 because we are just providing that instruction. If I go back, it's going to keep going and on and go back. Right, so pretty simple. Now, then we have the other instruction, which is going to be halt. And halt is going to be if we are maybe on step number 5, well, in this case 4, I press and hold that key, and we're going to be stuck on that step. We're going to be playing that same step over and over again until I release the key. So we are holding that step. That's what hold means. And we already talked about how this works on the previous video I made for Crave. Now, just like the reset, we can use the hold, and we can do it with some other instruction, maybe with a different synthesizer, or maybe with an LFO, or maybe with whatever you want. Right. And notice that the knob, the button right here, will go on when I turn it on. Right? Right. Okay, so now we need to cover almost the last two things, which is going to be the VCACV and the VCF. Now, the VCF is just pretty simple, where the chain goes. And again, I should have explained this one a little bit earlier. I believe I forgot. So right now, the sound is going to go all the way from here, right? Well, you're going to play a key. The oscillator is just going to generate a frequency depending on which key you press. Then it's going to go to the filter. Then it's going to go to the BCA, and then through the envelopes and blah, 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 and so on. At the end, you're going to get some sound. So the VCF is just the part where it's going to be like here before it goes to the out of the VCA. And right here is going to go, you're going to get this out, and you can use it to maybe send it to someplace else, or maybe use it to modulate something with the audio rate of whatever you're getting from the VCF. And it contains pretty much the sound that it's coming out of the VCF. So just to give you an example, since we are working with audio rates, sometimes audio rates are just going to go crazy. So maybe using the oscillator CB and modulating the frequency of that, it's just going to get you to a cool sound. I don't know what you're going to get. We're going to get that sound. Now, of course, since we are going from the cutoff, from the BCF out, if you modify how this works, you're going to be getting that. You can get crazy sounds out of this one. Same with the resonance. What happens if I maybe do an LFO? Right. Now, at the end of the day, remember that this one is kind of outputting some signal, but the signal is not super strong. So let's just maybe, maybe if I go to external audio, and let me just go all the way, to a normal kind of a thing. Notice that the external audio is going to let us go to the external, just catch it right here instead of noise. So if I play something, we get nothing. And it's, of course, if I go up, notice that we get some sound. But it's just not that what we want, right? It's just a different. If I remain it open, we are just going to be getting it. But again, it's not very useful in that particular part of way. And some synthesizers, when you get the out of the VCF, sometimes it's just gonna, you can use a very good level from here and just maybe go to a different synthesizer. Now, of course, this one can go out to a different synth and affect it somehow, of course. Now, well, let's go back to a default patch, and it kind of messed that up. So I'm gonna go maybe right here to the oscillator, and I'm gonna go up in volume just a little bit. Right, so we are doing none of this. So now we need to talk about the VCA-CV. So where do you find VCA, the keyword VCA? Right here, right? It's gonna be the volume. So that's it. That's pretty much it. But there's a little bit more to it. So of course, the CV is control voltage, but then what happens if I want to use something to control whatever it is that we are doing right here? So I'm going to go to a triangle, and we're going to learn this by example. I'm going to go to a triangle, and I'm going to go to the VCA CV. So what's going to, maybe I'm going to go to square. It's going to be a better instruction. And I'm going to go down so we can have a slow instruction. Okay, so we are using a square by doing the VCA CV. What happens if I go right here and go all the way down? Nothing happens. Okay, so if I go up and I keep it there and I go to the envelope, notice what happens. So the envelope should be re-triggering, right? Because we are hearing something. Well, behind the scenes, this is what it's doing. This is going up and down in volume, pretty much. That's why we get nothing on the envelope, because the envelope is not triggering. We are not using a gate. Right? We are just going up in volume of the synth. If I press a key, this is my gate. When I press a key, notice that happens. Notice that we get it? And then it goes up in volume, really up. Now, if I do something like that, notice that we get that ramp and the decay as well. Maybe I'm going to do no sustain. So we just get kind of something quick. And yeah, the envelope is triggering if I press a key, but of course, when we do it like this, we're like going up and down in volume. If I go to the on, it's just going to be a little bit different, and it's going to go loud. And it's again like moving this key, control, because now the envelope is just kind of disconnected. So if I do something else, right here, it's just the envelope is not triggering. So this is just kind of going up and down in volume. And again, it's just a little bit too much. Why? Well, the envelope, the LFO, we know is just sometimes a little bit too aggressive. It goes from -5 to +5. It's just super aggressive. But again, we can maybe attenuate it. And for now, I'm just gonna disconnect it and go off, because sometimes it's a little bit too annoying. So what we can do, maybe we can use the triangle. Maybe go to the mix of the number 2. Let me just go there, just get there. I'm going to go there to the mix of 2. I'm going to go mix 2. Cool. So now we are going through an attenuator, and I believe at this point, this is super easy for you. And we're going to go out of the VC mix, and I'm going to go to the control voltage of the VCA. So now we are going to be kind of controlling what's going on right here with this control. Notice if I go up, we get it. And now we're on the envelope mode. And I'm using a triangle, right? We know I'm using a triangle. So if I go right here and maybe go down in volume and maybe go all the way down, or maybe I'm just gonna be doing it like this. How, if you need to describe this, what's the word that you would use? So this works like a tremolo. Now it depends on the tremolo. You can use a triangle or more like a sine wave or different curves. But in this case, we're using a triangle. So this is kind of working as a tremolo. And when I play something, we get the tremolo. And that's what tremolo is. We go up and down in volume on a different fashion. Now, of course, you can go faster. You're going to get that more faster tremolo kind of thing. And if I go to the envelope, it's just the same thing. The only thing is just going to be a little bit different because we are using the envelope now. Now, of course, the envelope, it's just super close. Notice that we get it. And again, maybe we can do a little bit less. Right, so again, we are just kind of doing a tremolo. We are going up and down in volume in this case. Right, so we need to cover the last thing on the synthesizer. Of course, we are starting from a default patch, and it's going to be the assign. This one is one of the most important outs, or outs on the patch bay. And it's the most complex one, and it's because it can do a lot of things. Now, just to learn a little bit better how what this one will do, I'm gonna be using the Synth Drive software, the companion app. But when we are done learning everything that we can do with the assign, I'm going to be showing you how you can change or how you can select the different assign values directly from the keyboard, because maybe you cannot connect to a computer. So I'm going to be telling you later. So first you're going to need to watch, and then you're going to need to kind of do it if you want. So in this case, first, before I can do the patch, I'm going to take you to the app right now. So right here, you notice that you have an assign value, right, option. And if you open it, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you have 16 options. You know how you can do 16, things, different things. And why you can do 16? Well, we have 1 to 8 and then 1 to 8, 8 plus 8, you have 16. So 2 pages are going to be controlling this, assign value. And then again, I'm going to show you how to do this later. First, we're going to see what it does. So you can select right here, whatever of these options, they all will do something different. And we're going to go one by one. Don't worry. So I'm going to start right here at the bottom because these ones are the easiest one. So of all the options, the MIDI CCs are going to be what instruction from a MIDI CC that you're using, in this case, is I'm connected to MIDI, is going to be triggering some kind of a modulation. Well, usually the CC1 is going to be the mod wheel of whatever MIDI controller you're using. So now this assign is going to be your mod wheel. Yeah, pretty simple. So I'm going to go right here to the assign, and I want to modulate something with my mod wheel. So I'm going to go to the cutoff, something that we always do on every single thing. So now if I play something, and I'm going to be going there, and I made a mistake right there. Let me just go all the way down there. Now my mod wheel is all the way down. And if I go up, it's going to go up. Right. So if I do some playing without, playing the MIDI keyboard, we are just playing the sequence right here. Notice that the cutoff is all the way up, but my mod wheel is just different, just providing a different instruction. So I'm going to need to go up on my mod wheel to get something out of the cutoff. And if I go down on the mod wheel, you're just getting it. And if I go up to get it, and if I go down. So that's it. The MIDI CCs are going to be what MIDI CC is going to be doing the modulation. And usually the one is, the mod wheel, and then you have the other ones. Now, then, of course, you can use the pitch bend to do some modulation. You have the channel pressure. This one is going to be aftertouch. If I don't do anything, if I play something maybe right here, and for now, I'm going to keep it on the cutoff. I'm doing no modulation and no resonance. I'm going to be playing this. Notice that we get nothing. And I'm going to go to a different key, and I'm going to do aftertouch. Now we are getting it, and I'm going to release the aftertouch, and it goes dark. It goes dark again. And I'm gonna, right? So that's going to be your aftertouch. Now, of course, you don't have aftertouch right here. You just don't get it. I'm using a key step, so you do get aftertouch there. So you can use your aftertouch. You, of course, have velocity. The most useful kind of things. The weird ones are going to be these ones. And on this one, we need to do a little bit more explaining. Now, these ones are pretty obvious, right? So I'm going to go to the accent. Now, the accent, what will do pretty much, it will, kind of provide kind of an accent or rise in something whenever you have an accent on your sequence. Now, right now, my sequence has no accent. And for now, I'm just going to disconnect this. So I'm not going to be connecting it to anything. And I'm going to do play stop. And that is my sequence. I'm going to maybe start it right there. So it's going to go from 1 to 8, and I have no accent. So how can we add an accent? So I'm going to go to Shift, and I'm going to go to step number 1, and I want to add an accent right there. So this is the button for the accent. I'm going to be adding an accent right there, and I'm going to get out of there. Now this one has an accent. I'm going to go to number 5, or maybe number 4, and now number 4 will have an accent, and I'm going to get out. So 1 and 4 have an accent. Since on the assign value, we are doing, okay, so every time you do an accent, I want you to do something. Just to get something fun out of this, I'm going to go to FM. And yeah, we get that. It's very useful, Or you can do whatever other else that you wish. But in this case, we are just, doing a little bit of frequency modulation because this is just going up. And we are using it kind of an envelope, so it just provides a different value. So on each accent, we are going to get that FM. Right, so very cool, right? Okay, so then you have the other options. You have the sequencer clock. Now, this one is a little bit boring because in this one, it's going to be pretty much each step that you have right here. Every time that the clock, you're following the clock, it's going to go to step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 and so on. It's going to do it for all of the steps. And that's no fun. Now, what happens with the other ones? You get the divided by 2, and then the 4, and then you have all these ones. So I'm going to go to the divided by 2. So this one means that it will kind of do it on the odds. So it's going to do it on the 1, it's going to do it on the 3, it's going to do it on the 5th, it's going to do it on the 7th. And for this one, I'm going to need to reset always back to the first one, and I'm going to do some playing. And notice that we don't get it on all. We just get it on the steps, on the odds. Right. So, okay, let me stop it again, and I'm going to reset, and I'm going to go to the other one, which is going to be the divided by 4. So this one is going to be 1, and it's going to be 5 if you reset, and I'm going to show you why in a second. So let me just go back and reset again, and I'm going to start again. And notice that it's doing it here, and it's doing it here on the 1 and the 5 every time that we start, you know, the next 4. So, if I stop and play it, I'm going to be offsetting this. Notice this, now it's just doing it on different places. Right. And if I stop it again and I start it again very quickly, now it's again just going to doing it on a different place. Right. And you need to reset to kind of start from the 1 and 5 again. So that's what pretty much is doing. Of course, we can use the step sequencer ramp. This one is really cool. So what this will do, we'll use this value, and maybe I'm going to use something else like the cutoff, because it's just going to be super obvious. So this instruction will be a ramp, and if you are asking how a ramp looks, it's going to be starting down, going all the way up. Now I'm going to be playing, and this is going to be your sequence. It's going to start down, and it's going to ramp up until you finish your sequence. It's going to up, down, down on cutoff, up on cutoff. Starting low, ending high. That's the ramp. So then you have the other one, which is going to be the saw. You're going to start high, and then you're going to go down. So if I go to saw, it starts high, and then goes low. So basically, you're starting right here, and as you move through the sequence, it's just like going down on the cutoff. Of course, you can still, do something to the cutoff right here. Then what you get is going to be the triangle. And for this one, I'm going to reset and go to the triangle. And the triangle needs two or maybe just 2 loops for this one. It needs 2 cycles. It's going to go from 1 to 8, and then from 1 to 8 again. And the triangle is going to go down, up and down, and then it's going to go down and up. But it needs 2 cycles of this. I'm going to play it, and you're going to really hear this. All right. So notice what's going on. It starts down, goes up. Now the next one starts up and go down. So it's doing the triangle. Right, so what else do we get? So we get a random, and I believe I don't need to explain anything on the random. Just pretty simple. It's just random. Right. And then you get the last one, and the last one is going to be, and for now I'm just going to stop it and reset. I'm going to go to sequencer step 1 trigger output. What the F is this? So this one, it's going to trigger on the step number 1. That's it. I'm going to be playing it. And maybe a better example is going to be doing the oscillator FM. We get it on the 1. We don't get it anywhere else. We just get it on the 1. Right, so pretty simple. It's only triggering on the step number 1. That's what it means. That's why it says step 1 trigger. Alright, so this is what you can do with the assign out. Now, the main question right now is how can you access this assign values instead of, using the app on your computer without using the app on your computer? Well, you can do shift and you can do hold, press and hold. And let me just do shift and hold. And I'm going to go to the step number 8. That's it. So this is going to take you to the configuration of the synth. Now, you have 4 different pages, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, if I go to 1, this is going to give you different options. And this for this one, you need to go to the manual. I'm just going to be covering the assigned values on this one. So the number 1 is going to be something. The number 2 is going to be the assigned values. Then the next ones are going to be different configurations. So for now, if I go to the number 2, the number 2 again is going to be the assigned values. And this is telling me, dude, you are on accent. Now, since you have 16, you're going to need to cycle through the, the 16 different values. But right now, it's telling you, you are on the number 1. Now, of course, if I go to the app, it's going to tell me right there, you're an accent. And I'm going to be changing this from the app and it's going to refresh it right here. But when you change it from here, it will not update on the app. So if I go to the app and I choose the, select the option number 3, notice this is jumping to the number 3. So now the selected one is going to be sequencer clock divided by 2. And if I go to the ramp, that's going to be the number 6. So for now, I'm going to go to the accent, the number 1. So how can I select, different options from here? So I'm going to be going to the steps. You don't need to do shift. You just need to press the steps. So now this one is going to be the divided by 2. This one is going to be the 4. This one is going to be the ramp. This one is going to be the saw, and so on, and so on, and so on, until you reach the number 8, where you cannot go any further. So for now, I'm just going to go back to accent right here. Let me just go back to the step number 1. So how can you access to the next kind of 8 options? So what you can do is shift, and whatever you do right here is going to take you to the next 8. So of course, if you go from 1 to 8, you do shift and 1, this is going to be the 9, right? And notice it's telling you right there that you're on the next, on kind of the next 8. And if I go to the number, this number is going to be 10, then 11, 12, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if I do the last one, or maybe the number, I believe it's this one, the number 5, that's going to be the mod wheel, right? Remember, if you go backwards, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one is going to be the mod wheel. So that's the way you have to kind of change the values or the assigned values from here. Now, of course, if you do shift and you select something else, it's going to kind of take you out of there. Oh, sorry, you need to test it without shift. When you do shift, it's going to the next page, and without the shift, it's just this current page. That's, pretty much how it works. So that's, how you can assign values from within this. All right, so if I go to the other ones, the number 1, and then we have the 2, which we know is the assigned value. Then we have the 3 and the 4. So what the F are those ones? So the number 1 is going to be, let me just give you an example. Whenever you go to trigger, for example, you can select the rate CB right there. This one right here, the 1 PPS or 2 PPS or whatever, so on, so on, so on. Well, this is going to be this option. And notice if I change it right here on the app, we are on trigger, for example. If I go to, I don't know, CB, this is going to be jumping to the number 5. And if I go to 1, it's going to go to number 1. Or if I go to 2, it's going to go to number 2. So that is the first option right here on the configuration. The second one, and for now, I'm just going to do nothing. I'm going to go to internal. So the number 2 is going to be, of course, the assigned value. Now, the number 3 is going to be the source, which is this source, the clock source. And right now we have internal. If I change it to auto, it's going to go to the number 5. And we can see that changing. And if I do trigger, it's going to go to the number 4, and so on, and so on, and so on. And then you have the number 4. And the number 4 is going to be, for example, if it's going to be the edge. So if you don't know what the edge is, I'm going to go to trigger. And you're going to see the rate right here. When we go to 1 PPS or PPQ, well, that's going to be the polarity. If it's going to be, rise or fall or whatever it is that you're using. If I go to rise, notice that it's changing to number 2. And if I go to fall, it's going to be number 1. So that's, the other options. And with this, I believe we just pretty much, and all of this, of course, is useful to connect this with other gear. So I believe with this, we can finish this guide. It's just enough. We just covered all the ins, all the outs, and, a little bit more as well. So hopefully you like all this and you learned something from this guide. Remember, of course, to like and subscribe. That really helps the channel a lot. And of course, if you have the money and you can afford it, you can go to Patreon, or maybe just donate on this on YouTube. You can do that. You can buy me a coffee if you wish. But of course, you're not forced to do so. Only if you have the money and only if you can afford it, okay? So again, hopefully you liked all of this and you learned something, and see you on the next one.